Now, The Hunt Palmer Show.
Waiting to rise again.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show. Brought to you by Corks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is the moment you've all been waiting for.
Locking down the middle of the day. Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio downtown in the capital city on this Football Friday. It means we're brought to you by Corks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp. Got Jacob Beck and Cassie Spazzali back there on the ones and twos. Fired up. You are here with us every single Friday. We've got some of our staples here. We'll have Preston Guy coming up in 15 minutes. He, of course, from TigerBait.com. Got NFL Sunday to get you prepared for. I want to talk a little bit more about this LSU and Vanderbilt game, specifically Vanderbilt's offense, and then what LSU offensively has got to do to get things moving in the right direction. We'll certainly play take it or leave it. My final pick for LSU and Vanderbilt is coming up as well. So we are glad you are here. Let's get things rolling the same way we do each and every day with our Genesis opening drive.
It's time for Hunt's opening drive, presented by Genesis of Baton Rouge.
Genesis of Baton Rouge. Every car on the lot is online at genesisofbatonrouge.com. All right, I have to start only one way here. I have to take a shovel and hammer home some crow, like lots of it, like an extra heaping size of crow. Because you have heard me for 3 weeks completely and utterly dismiss every report about Bryce Underwood taking a pile of cash from Michigan. I said it once, I said it twice, I said it 3 times. I said I didn't believe any of it. And 70% of that was blind homerism unintentionally, and 30% of that was just based on what we had heard the entire time and what we had seen from the recruit in his camp. Bryce Underwood and his camp said all the right things. They did all the right things on the surface. They came to Baton Rouge. They never visited anywhere else. He was here on an official visit. He was here on unofficial visits. He came and camped here. His Twitter and Instagram suggested he was all LSU. His family said, we're not making a financial decision here. We're making a fit and development decision here. The NFL will take care of things down the road financially. I'm taking all that at face value. I don't know Bryce Underwood. I don't know his parents. I don't know his lawyer. I don't know his agent. I just read what is reported. And I also read when Pete Nako says, hey, $10 million from Michigan. And then you don't really see any movement. And I thought, well, this is pretty simple. He's made his decision. And I'm certain that LSU is going to offer some money as well. I said what I thought. And I was dead flat wrong and stupid. Because when that amount of money is involved, it always matters. This is a new world for us here as college football fans, for me as someone who covers college football. And money is not new in college football, but being able to publicly offer this much cash is new. And I may be wrong, but I don't think players were agreeing to $12 million deals 15 years ago. I could be wrong. Again, I wasn't there for that either. But I think that this was, the under-the-table money was probably less substantial because once you get to $12 million, that seems fairly easy to track. So this is a new world, and I whiffed. That's my bad. I whiffed. But now we have to talk about what the ramifications are of this decision that Bryce Underwood has made. This is very bad for LSU. It is. It is bad to lose the only quarterback in your class. It is bad to lose a 5-star quarterback. It is bad to lose the number 1 quarterback in the country a couple of weeks before signing day. That is bad. We don't know what Bryce Underwood's going to be. He might be Trevor Lawrence, star college quarterback, national champion, first pick in the draft. He might be Tim Tebow, one of the greatest players in the history of college football, who was a 5-star quarterback. He might be Bryce Young, who's the best quarterback in the history of Alabama and went first in the draft. He might be. The odds are that he's very good. He could be DJ Uiagalelei. He was a second-ranked player in the nation, 5-star recruit. He's played at 3 different colleges, isn't good at any of them. He might be Shea Patterson, was a top 5 player in the country. Played at 2 schools, mediocre quarterback. Everybody went nuts about Walker Howard coming to LSU and getting his commitment, and that didn't work out here or at Ole Miss. We don't know. He could be great. He could not be great. But the fact of the matter is you'd rather have him than not because his talent level is immense. Skill set's unbelievable. And your quarterback situation beyond Garrett Nussmeier and Bryce Underwood as of 24 hours ago is real iffy, to say the least. So this loss is very, very bad. But LSU can fix that part of it. Because every single year, there is Dylan Gabriel and Cam Ward. There's Jackson Dart. There's Quinn Ewers. There's Jaden Daniels. Every year, big-time quarterbacks hit the market. LSU will find another quarterback. He might be a lot better than Bryce Underwood. He might be a little better than Bryce Underwood. He might be about the same. He might not even be close. But LSU will find another quarterback. The future of LSU football did not rest solely on the shoulders of Bryce Underwood. I promise you. They will field a team next year. They will field a team the year beyond that. And LSU will have a good quarterback in the near future. But this hurts, and it hurts worse because of the last 3 football games LSU has played. It is piling on. And I'll tell you, a month ago, people weren't solely focused on Bryce Underwood. People were thinking, we've got the best quarterback in the SEC. We beat Ole Miss. We beat South Carolina on the road. We've got a real chance to go to A&M. Now it's halftime. We got a real chance to do something great this year. That's what everyone was thinking about. And that has shifted over the last 3 weeks. And this hurts worse because of that. He became the White Knight because of the failures on the field the last 3 football games. And so coping with that is very difficult for an LSU fan. I get that. But LSU will get another quarterback, just like everybody else is fielding transfer quarterbacks all the time. Now, what does it mean big picture for LSU recruiting? People say, LSU is done. They will never recruit at an elite level again. They don't have pockets as deep as Michigan and Texas A&M. The glory days are over. People will say that. I can't prove them wrong sitting here today. I can't. Here's my opinion. LSU still has some real advantages on a lot of schools in college football. This state bleeds purple and gold. That stadium is iconic and legendary. The recent history and the championships and the Heisman trophies that have been won here mean something. Saturday night in Death Valley is renowned across the nation. And there are a lot of good players that grow up in this state. And LSU is still going to get a lot of those kids. If Bryce Underwood had never committed to LSU and as a junior in high school had committed to Michigan and never visited LSU, and you had never heard of him because you don't pay attention to anybody that Michigan signs, you would look at this signing class and go, this is pretty good. They did a good job in the state. They got the number 1 running back in the nation. They've got commitments from 2 5-star cornerbacks to retool that secondary. They've got edge rushers. They've got offensive linemen. Maybe Carius Kern becomes a 5-star. You would look at this class if you had never heard of Bryce Underwood and say, this is pretty good. And I think LSU will recruit well moving forward in this era. Where LSU is going to have massive issues is going to Michigan for the number 1 player in the nation. Is going to California for the number 1 player in the nation. That's a water that LSU is not going to be able to swim in. Because as I wrote in my column for LouisianaSports.net yesterday, Michigan's endowment is $19 billion. LSU's is $1 billion. Michigan leaned on the owner and founder of Oracle. Hundreds of billions of dollars. Successful business people in Baton Rouge don't have that. Dave Portnoy doesn't have that. He is a minnow compared to some of the top in that Michigan machine. Now, a lot of those people have other interests, and have families and lineages, and Dave Portnoy just has a house in Florida and likes to bet on horses and has no problem dishing $10 million out to a bet or a quarterback. But that's not really the issue. LSU doesn't have enough whales and doesn't have enough fish to compete with that nationally. Now, they got into those waters with Bryce Underwood, and they almost got out alive, but they didn't. LSU is going to have trouble with that. And I think that hurts, but I don't think it's a death blow to the program. You can talk about this era of Brian Kelly, and we'll have that discussion for years. It'll continue. But LSU doesn't have pockets that deep. They still have pockets that can potentially land DJ Pickett, can go in there, flip a 5-star Texas commit at corner, lock down the state, and that's very, very important. But you ran up against the perfect storm here. A program that saw that it could get to the top of the mountain in Michigan. They did it last year. They know that's now possible. You could have doubted that 3 years ago when Harbaugh was kind of foundering and they hadn't won anything since 98, and you could have doubted it in Michigan. Well, now they know they can get to the top. And they know how quickly you can fall off if you don't spend money. And they're terrible this year. They can't complete a pass. They can't beat anybody. They're awful. Ohio State is going to beat them by 40. And that woke them up. And so you've now got the number one player in the nation who lives very far away from you, and now the home team is motivated and rich and did not take no for an answer. That is a perfect storm, and LSU was never going to weather that. Back to the initial point of this segment, my fault for not recognizing that. I'm an idiot. But I believe this is a bad, bad, bad thing for LSU to lose a talent like Bryce Underwood. I don't think it's a death blow to the program. I don't think it's an indication that LSU will never compete again. I think it hurts them in the very short term, but I think it's correctable because now you've got funds that were earmarked for that kid for 3 years that you can go to the transfer portal and find somebody else. And that's what they have to do. It would be nice for LSU if they could beat Vanderbilt and a terrible Oklahoma team next week and try to lift the spirits of that football program for 9 days. That would be nice. And then you have to find a way to keep the rest of these guys in this class. It's a bad day for LSU. It's an awful month for LSU. It is not going to send LSU into a 20-year death spiral. It just feels that way today. We'll see where they go. That's our Genesis opening drive here on this Football Friday. We're brought to you by Cork's Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp. If you're watching the Tigers this week or you're heading out to tailgate, Cork's always a fantastic option. They have got great catering trays of crispy fried catfish, of jumbo Gulf shrimp, those shoestring fries, honey butter rolls. They got it all over there at Cork's. They're on Government between Foster and Jefferson. Go check them out for a late lunch today for tailgating, or if you want to feed the office for a holiday lunch, want to give everybody a treat there as we get into December and ready to close out the year. Cork's happy to feed your office as well. Just give them a little notice, and they are happy to do your catering. We'll come back. Preston Guy, TigerBait.com. It is a Friday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge. Every car on the lot at Genesis of Baton Rouge is online at genesisofbatonrouge.com. How about some of these fantastic perks of being a Genesis driver? 10 years, 100,000-mile warranty. 10 years. It's a decade. You're under warranty. How about 3 years of complimentary maintenance? And not just that, valet complimentary maintenance. That means, hey, you got to get the oil changed, got to get those tires rotated, need to do with the cabin air filter, wiper blades, wiper fluid, all that kind of stuff. They can handle that. And you don't even have to go to the dealership. You go to work, they come to your office, they pick the car up, leave you with a Genesis, take your car to the dealership, handle the maintenance, bring it right back to you. You don't lift a finger. Couldn't be easier. It's all part of driving a Genesis from right here, Genesis of Baton Rouge. Their airline at Piku, just across from Women's Hospital. Start your process today online at genesisofbatonrouge.com. It's Genesis of Baton Rouge, genesisofbatonrouge.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Cork's Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp.
Working towards the weekend. Hope it's been a good work week for you. Hope you're done with work for the week. If you're not, we'll get you to the finish line here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Setting the stage for Sunday in the National Football League is next. With this time every week, talk to Preston Guy, TigerBait.com. He joins us now on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Preston, usually I ask you how you doing. Are you doing okay? Things are not great in LSU football land.
No, and look, I believe it's your personal 9/11 this weekend, so maybe pregame warm-ups is going to be a catastrophe for you. It's a rough time. Sometimes I question the career I picked, but ultimately I get to talk about sports and get paid for it. So that's always a win, no matter how much losing LSU is doing. This is a colossal meltdown right now between the 3 losses and losing Bryce Underwood. Hunt, I would say the last time there's been a fan meltdown like this would have to be 1-9-12, and then of course Gunnar Kiel 2 days later flipping to Notre Dame. That has to be the last time people were freaking out, except for back then there was still a confidence, like the team was still looking like it would be stacked in 2012, and I'm not sure that's the case for 2025 in LSU.
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, how big a deal is Bryce Underwood? How big a deal is the landscape of recruiting for LSU nationally and even within the state? I mean, that's a lot to chew on, but just take it wherever you might.
I mean, it definitely is. I could take that 1,000 different directions. Losing Bryce Underwood is as big of a recruit as you could possibly lose. I suppose the only positive spin on that, the only way it could be bigger is if somehow he was a kid from Louisiana and that was beginning to mark a cultural shift, right? So I guess thank God for that. But other than that, I mean, we're talking about a kid you desperately needed to come in. You're talking about a coach who desperately needed him to win fan support, and now he's basically lost that type of fan support. And it's going to be tough for the coaching staff to rebound from this simply from a fan support perspective, because you got to think fans right now basically can have the choice of, well, do I want to donate to LSU athletics and help to that buyout? Or do I want to donate to your NIL collective and help this coach win? And that's why fan support matters way more than it really ever has. So it's tough from that angle to rebound from. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and be the guy who's going to tell you Bryce Underwood's not that good. He's probably one of the better quarterback prospects to come out in recent memory. It's a rough one, man. And you look at the landscape of where LSU's at in recruiting, it's like every recruiting battle you're seeing LSU lose with a big-name guy. They're in it, and then they start talking about NIL money. And it seems like every time one of these NIL conversations comes up, LSU finds itself on the losing end, not willing to overcommit to a player that they frankly need. We think about that with DeCorian Moore. We're talking about that with Bryce Underwood. We were talking about that with defensive tackles in the portal. Are we going to be talking about that with Jakeem Stewart? And I think it opens an even broader question of, is LSU truly an elite program in the NIL era? Because what made LSU an elite program was that recruiting geography, which obviously still exists and still a big advantage for LSU. But is it as big of an advantage of having a robust NIL collective? And maybe LSU's got a good NIL, funding situation as a program, but is it truly elite? Because LSU's recruiting geography, I look at as one of 3 in the country where you truly own a talent-rich state. And that makes things way easier. And that's what's carried LSU as a program. That's why Les Miles and Ed Ogeron have championship rings on their finger. So I think it opens a broader conversation about would even firing Brian Kelly, let's say he's that incompetent of a coach, or is it something else that's a little more frightening to look at as an LSU fan? I don't know. I don't have that answer right now. I'm just saying you have to start thinking about it.
Certainly with Bryce Underwood, certainly with DeCorian Moore, absolutely those discussions are real. And with Dominic Williams as well in the portal from last year who ended up at Oklahoma. And that's fair. But I would also point to DJ Pickett. I would point to Harlan Berry. I would point to Cade Phillips. I would point to even Carius Kern, who's out of state. And LSU's class by on threes ranked 6th in the country. So is that still a sign that things are not quite as bad as people feel right now, losing 3 straight and having the number 1 player in the country bail on you?
I mean, you've been bringing in, classes that are top 5-ish, top 10-ish since Brian Kelly got here, and it hasn't manifested on the field. I think that you definitely need to bring in a quarterback of some sort. That being said, Hunt, today's not the day people want to hear positivity. They want to hear negative, Hunt.
I know.
We got to give the people what they want. But, yes, there is still some positive news, but we're all naive if we don't think that this coaching staff has to get to work to retain more of this recruiting class. In fact, most of us are expecting Derek Meadows to hop ship and join him at Michigan. He's basically decommitted, all but on paper, right? And you have to go forward and retain the rest of this class. You can't miss Jakeem Stewart because you're sad about Bryce Underwood. You can't let Harlan Berry flip and go somewhere else. You have to retain this class and keep things in place. That's 100% the mission of this coaching staff. And frankly, you got to win games next year. I think that with Bryce Underwood gone, the narrative of, well, this is going to be a rebuilding year. You've got all these freshmen coming back next year. Let's say you go 9-3, 8-4. Well, okay, but they're building. A lot of young guys are out there. Look, man, I mean, perception is reality for these fans, and the perception is that with Bryce Underwood gone, it's not that you're just waiting for him to grow up and develop. I think Brian Kelly, to win the fans back, has to go into the portal, bring in some impact players, not role players, impact players, and make the playoffs next year, or he might not get the chance to get the fans back on board.
It's an interesting time. It certainly feels a lot different than it did a month ago. It's crazy how quickly things can flip. Let's talk briefly about LSU and Vanderbilt tomorrow. Give me something you're looking for. Give me a thought on how you think things might go.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. These coaches need a win in a big kind of way. Yeah. They don't want that cherry on top of a loss to Vanderbilt. And no matter how good Vanderbilt is, that name means something. And to opposing coaches, it means embarrassment. You don't want to lose this game, especially in those yellow jerseys. We're going to have cursed yellow jerseys and cursed Omar the Tiger.
Yep.
In terms of the on the field, Diego Paiva, he's tough, man. That's a gritty athlete who executes his offense very well. That being said, he's not a dynamic runner like Jalen Milroe, right? He's fast, but he's a gritty, tough runner. And I think LSU's defense has certainly had trouble stopping that. You can't let him roll out and do his thing and just nickel and dime you all day. But more importantly, you got to execute in the red zone, man. You got to, when you get to the point where you're able to score the ball, you need touchdowns way more than you've been doing on this team. And if you settle for a field goal, you got to make them more consistently. It's sad because LSU is actually a pretty good offense, like in between the 20s, really in between the 30s, more broadly speaking. But it's just something about when it's time to go get your paycheck, they haven't been able to punch it in. I would love to see some improvement in that category.
What do you think about the environment tomorrow?
Man, I think it's going to be interesting to see. I thought it was going to be maybe 90K showing up. No, program's in disarray, but, it's a night game at Tiger Stadium. It's an SEC game, winnable game for sure. You wouldn't want Georgia rolling up in here tomorrow with the way things are, right? But I don't know. I genuinely feel that this Bryce Underwood impact, it's being felt by people. The internet world and the real world are two different things a lot of times. But I'm noticing that it's being felt by people who don't even follow or care about recruiting. A lot of people have a sour taste in their mouth with this Bryce Underwood news. I wouldn't be surprised if that even has some impact on the atmosphere.
You think they win?
Hunt, I'm getting a little tired of picking them up to win every week with you. And then Monday, I'm looking dumb on my show every Monday night. Like, yeah, I thought they would win, but I really do think that this coaching staff needs this win in a big kind of way. They're going to roll up their sleeves and pull out their A game. And I think these players are going to play with pride. I look at it, how when an interim coach comes in and takes over, and a lot of times he lights a fire under the program, kind of like what we're seeing with the Saints right now, and just excites people. But then after a while, it's almost like that type of situation where I think LSU players are going to play with more fire and passion than we've seen in a while. And I expect LSU to get the win. They still have a vastly more talented roster than Vanderbilt. There's no question in my mind about that. It's just about playing with that edge on you. And frankly, look, Vanderbilt, even as much as they showed, did catch Bama off guard. LSU, they are on alert as to how good Vanderbilt is. I think LSU takes the win, but who knows, man? Maybe we'll just continue to be wrong, and we'll be more embarrassed on Monday. Who knows?
Either way, Preston will be talking about it on his YouTube channel over there at Tiger Bait every Monday. We're off next week for Thanksgiving, so we'll talk in a couple of weeks. Thanks, Preston.
See you, Hunt.
Preston Guy, TigerBait.com, with us every single Friday here on the Hunt Palmer Show. I was chatting a little earlier with Taylor Sharp in the room back there, and I set the over/under for attendance for tomorrow at 88,000. Still, it is an SEC game. The weather's going to be phenomenal, and I just don't think it's going to be half empty in there. I think that 88,000 leaves 15,000 empty seats. I think that's pretty fair for where we're going to be. I think you'll see sparse crowds in the upper, but I think otherwise it'll be pretty standard stuff for a Vanderbilt game. I mean, I think if you had Georgia or Texas A&M coming in here and bringing a lot of fans, that might change the equation a little bit. But I think for this game, I think you're probably looking at about 88,000, and it's going to be one of those deals where LSU's going to have to bring their own juice. They're going to have to bring their own energy. There's just not going to be a lot of buzz on campus. There's not going to be a lot of buzz in that stadium. So those guys are going to have to come and bring their energy. I told you all this week that I sensed a different feeling on Tuesday in player interviews. Not a team that had quit, and they certainly said all the right things, but just one of those deals where, to use like a bad cliche, like the light was kind of gone from their eyes. We still talked about SEC championship games, getting to the college football playoff. Like, that was a topic of conversation after Texas A&M. It was a topic of conversation entering Alabama, after Alabama, and even going into the Florida game, because you knew that tiebreaker situation could break your way. Now you know that's gone, and the guys mentioned that, and they had that player-only meeting, and it's going to have to be a deal where LSU lights their own fire tomorrow inside Tiger Stadium. We'll see whether or not that happens. A lot of big-picture discussions going on here with the LSU football program. Get ready with 2 weeks left to go. So we appreciate Preston for a little bit of his time. When we come back, we'll get you set up for the NFL weekend to play. It's the Friday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Make LeBear's Baton Rouge your game day headquarters all season long. They got the biggest screens around, and now you can bet and dine at ESPN Bet in person. I'll tell you this most days, but you can play blackjack in the sportsbook over at ESPN Bet inside LeBear's. They got a couple tables right there, televisions right there, bartenders are right there. It's a great place. If you don't like playing cards, you just want to watch some ball, you can do that too, because the screens are massive and they can play 4 or 5 games at one time. If you got a number of wagers going on or want to pay attention to a couple of games at once, you can do that inside ESPN Bet. And y'all been doing an awesome job all season long of downloading that Cover 5 app and competing against me and a lot of the listeners every single week, picking 5 SEC games against the spread. It's a cool contest. You pick against the spread, and depending on how much a team covers by, you get a number of points assigned to you. I've fallen off the face of the earth on it. I'm very much middle of the pack after a pretty good start. But you can compete against me with the promo code LABRSEC24 on the Cover 5 app. If you're not a member, just get the Pin Play app today. LeBear's Baton Rouge, your live sports headquarters. Must be 21 years or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-589-9966 for help.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Quirks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp.
All right, we'll get my SEC picks against the spread coming up in 25 minutes. A lot of action in the SEC because a lot of teams are out of conference here on quote-unquote cupcake week. LSU not out of conference. I'll take on Vanderbilt. I'll talk about the Vanderbilt's Commodores in hour number 2, and we'll get my final pick at the end of the show. Coming up, LSU in Pittsburgh, underway from the Greenbrier up there in West Virginia. Big test for Matt McMahon and his team against Pittsburgh. Just a really good opportunity here this weekend against what will be 2 good teams no matter what the results are. Certainly Pitt's a really quality team today. And then on Sunday, you'll either see Wisconsin, who is a ranked team, or you'll see Central Florida, who beat Texas A&M in the season opener. So it's a really good opportunity for LSU here. I do see that Robert Miller did get the start at the 4. I wrote in my preview piece over at LouisianaSports.net, maybe you might see Damian Collins in that spot, who's maybe giving LSU a little bit more production at that 4 spot. I can tell you that it's a really small gym that they're playing in there at the Greenbrier. You're talking about like 10 seats, 10 rows above each bench. And so Pitt does not have a huge contingent there. It's not going to be some sort of a big road environment for the Tigers. So we'll keep you posted on those scores as they happen before we get out of here at 3 o'clock. Right now, let's get you set up for NFL Sunday with our tier list. All right, this week is not good. It's not a good tier list. Nothing is in tier 1, and there is substantial action in tiers 3 and 4, which is, of course, the worst of the weekend. But it's NFL football nonetheless, so let's get started. The Patriots are at the Dolphins. This is in tier 4. Interestingly enough, the Patriots are a 7.5-point underdog in this game. They have won their last 2 games as a 6+ point dog. Last one was against the Chicago Bears at Soldier Field. We'll see if they can go to Miami and beat the Dolphins. The Buccaneers are at the Giants. Sans Daniel Jones. He's cut, so we'll see if he's even watching. Daniel, it's tier 4. You don't have to watch the Giants this week. Mike Evans will be watching. He'll actually be playing. He returns to the lineup for Tampa Bay. He needs to average 95 yards per game to get to 1,000 yards. He's had 1,000 yards in every season of his NFL career. Missed some time due to injury. That's going to be a tall task for Mike Evans, but could be a good start against the Giants this weekend, who are not very good. And then the last one in tier 4, the Chiefs are at the Panthers, one of the best teams in the league, maybe the worst team in the league, but the Panthers have won 2 straight. A win here would be their longest winning streak in 5 years. 3 would be their longest winning streak in 5 years. The Chiefs might get Isaiah Pacheco back, something to watch for their late season run. All right, into tier 3. Not great, but okay. The Vikings are at the Bears. Chicago has lost 4 straight games, and they have the toughest schedule left. Matt Eberflus has no chance of keeping his job. Sam Darnold, who started off great this year, has had multiple turnovers in the last 4 games this year. And the Vikings are 4-0. They are winning in spite of Sam Darnold at this point. The Lions are at the Colts. Detroit has won 8 in a row, and they're 5-0 on the road this season. Lions have also won 4 games this year where they have scored more touchdowns than thrown incompletions. That is how good Detroit is playing at this point. They go to Indianapolis to play a team that kind of lacking an identity. Cowboys are at the Commanders. Cowboys facing Dan Quinn, their former defensive coordinator. Dallas 0-5 against the spread in their last 5. That's the longest streak for them since 2020. The Titans are at the Texans. The Titans are the 3rd team since 2000 to start 1-9 against the spread. If you've been betting against Tennessee, you've been cashing tickets. They are very much in the running for the number 1 overall pick in the draft. They go to Houston, where the Texans look to be really good. The Broncos are at the Raiders. Bo Nix is coming off his best game as a pro, 307 yards, 4 touchdowns at Atlanta. The Raiders have the worst running game in the NFL, and their top 2 backs are not going to play. That's, of course, Alexander Mattison and Zamir White. So I like the Broncos' chances to go to the desert and win. This is the best football we've got all Sunday, because this is tier 2, and there is nothing in tier 1. 49ers are at the Packers. This is a good game, but San Francisco is still 5-5. Bosa is questionable for the 49ers, and San Francisco can't really rush the passer without him. Jordan Love is playing great football. Last week, on passes that traveled 15+ yards, he was 6 for 6. That is some good quarterback in there for Jordan Love. The Cardinals playing great football. They're at Seattle. Cardinals have won 4 straight, just coming off their bye week. If they beat Seattle to go to 7-4 and San Francisco loses at Green Bay, they are very much in the driver's seat for the NFC West. I don't think anybody had the Cardinals winning that division. That's very interesting stuff there. And then Sunday Night Football is in tier 2. It's the Eagles at the Rams. The Eagles have 150 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns in 5 straight games, which doesn't sound that great to me. Like, it's a good effort, 150 yards on the ground and 2 touchdowns in 5 straight games. It's the longest streak since the Bengals did it in 1988. I was born in 1988. Nobody's done this since I was born. Eagles could stretch it to 6 with 150 more yards and 2 touchdowns on Sunday night against the LA Rams. That is your look at the NFL slate coming up on Sunday. Beck, does any of that pique your interest? I don't have anything in Tier 1.
Well, wait, so is the Ravens-Chargers not considered this week?
Did I miss Ravens-Chargers?
They play Monday.
No, I don't do Monday.
Okay, you don't do Monday. I was going to say that would have been a Tier 1 game.
That is definitely Tier 1.
And to your point about how bad this slate is, that would have been the only game with 2 teams that had better than 500 record.
Yeah, I mean it's a lot of like good teams against terrible teams. Yeah. Chiefs, Panthers. I mean,
there's Texans,
Titans, Commanders, Cowboys, Lions, Colts. There's not Vikings, Bears.
There's not a single game with 2 teams that have a winning record.
That's bizarre, and I think it also it's a crazy, but and I still bet we'll show up on Monday to talk about some of the things, and there will be some wild stuff.
Yes, like there will be.
Survivor leagues are about done at this point. Well, they should be done at this point. If you've gotten this far, then you're pretty salty at Survivor leagues. But something wild will happen. I'm starting to sense like a kind of pick up on this NFL slate that like I just feel like the Lions are a lot better than everybody. Like if the Lions and Chiefs played in Nashville, who would you take?
I think I'd take the Lions, and the Lions would probably be like a 3 or 4 point favorite.
I mean, they're way good. And it's just crazy that Goff has ascended to that level. That stat I gave on them in this thing where they've had 4 games, like once, 4 times they have scored more touchdowns than thrown in completions.
Yeah.
You can't be that efficient in the NFL.
Well, no, and the fact that they had a game in which he threw 5 interceptions and they still won.
Yeah.
It's incredible stuff.
Dan Campbell has got to be, I wonder what his mindset is right now, because on one hand, and this is probably where he is, just kind of reading his persona in press conferences, it's probably like, we've got a great team, like, let's go win the Super Bowl. But on the other hand, he has to have, like, a whole drawer full of coordinator names. Because Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson are toast after this year. They're leaving Detroit. And, like, overhauling that is a tough gig. But if you've got a general manager that's done a good job, which I couldn't tell you who the Lions general manager is, but they got a great team, so I'm sure he's doing great. You feel like you can keep the culture, but you've got to overhaul systems, because it's like Dan Campbell's got a system. He's a tight ends coach. he's the rah guy and the leader of the pack, and he's gonna have to overhaul things pretty significantly probably in February. But it's a good problem to have, I guess. Beats where a lot of teams in the NFL are at this point. So
I got a quick update on the LSU game. I watched the first possession, and guess who got the ball?
Guess who got, like, what team or what player?
No, like who did LSU give the ball to on their first offensive possession?
Cam Carter.
Nope. Jalen Reed. And he scored.
Oh, good.
He made a move to the hoop and made a little
I've got
shot.
it on, but I'm trying to do the segment.
Yeah, not easy to do them at the same time.
But I got it, and of course now I'm about to go into a break and it's commercial, so it is what it is. When we come back, there's a name that was mentioned for the Saints head coaching position. We've got a story up at LouisianaSports.net on it. I kind of like it. We'll tell you who it is next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Evolve Physical Therapy and Sports. EvolvePT.com is the website. If you are not able to be your active self, whether that's because you've been injured, whether that's because you've had a surgery, whatever the reason may be, but you're trying to regain strength or get rid of pain so that you can move forward being your active self, Evolve Physical Therapy and Sports is your answer. A lot of people don't know this. You get hurt and you're just taking advice from everybody and you think you have to go this place or that place for your rehabilitation. That's not the case. You get to pick where you go for your rehab. Evolve Physical Therapy and Sports needs to be your pick. They've got an incredible crew of certified physical therapists that are going to be hands-on with you from start to finish. They're going to make sure you're making progress so that you can get back on the pickleball court, you can get back on the golf course, you can get back to playing with the kids, back to exercising every day. If those are things you're missing right now because of pain, Evolve Physical Therapy and Sports is where you need to be. You can check them out online, evolvept.com. They're on Starring near Highland Road. It's Evolve Physical Therapy and Sports.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Quirks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp.
All right, closing up hour number 1 here on a Football Friday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. We're brought to you by Cork's Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp. I wanted to spend some time here talking about a potential head coaching candidate for the New Orleans Saints that our guy Ross Jackson wrote about over at LouisianaSports.net. Ross has done a great job kind of staying on top of everything Saints coaching search related, even though they're not in the throes of it. When something pops up, he's always good to give an opinion on such things. And NFL Network insider Tom Pelissero talked about young coaches to look for in the next carousel, and the Saints are going to be involved in that, obviously. And one of the names that surfaced was Jesse Minter. Jesse Minter was the defensive coordinator at Michigan last couple of years when their defense was phenomenal, a national championship defense that was just churning guys out into the NFL, and those guys are having a lot of success in the NFL at this point. And Jim Harbaugh took him to Los Angeles to be the defensive coordinator of the Chargers, and those results have picked up right where they left off at Michigan. You're talking about a guy in Jesse Minter who had the number 1 defense across a lot of major categories at Michigan, and now the Chargers number 1 in the NFL in points allowed, as well as some other statistics. They've played exceptional defense. It's not taken really any time at all for Jim Harbaugh to implement that aggressive running game, time of possession, smothering defense, and it works in the Big Ten, and it's working right now in the AFC West. And I think this sounds great to me. Jesse Minter has spent time with Jim Harbaugh. He knows how that operates at a college level and now at the NFL level. He worked for John Harbaugh and the Ravens from 2017, 2020. I think that's a pretty good organization to get a feel for. He's never been a head coach, and that's a chance that you can take. But I'm not someone here who sits here and looks at this Saints job and says, you have to go get a young offensive coach. I think it would be good if they got a young offensive coach. I think Ben Johnson would be a great hire for the New Orleans Saints. I think that some guys off of that tree with that system that they would bring to New Orleans and implement and keep no matter who the position coaches and coordinators were would be a very good thing. But I'm not one that says you have to zig when you've been zagging. We know that that the Saints have had Dennis Allen running the show and the defense. So the thought is when you hire a new coach, after firing that one, you have to go the opposite direction. So instead of going with the grizzled veteran defensive retread, you go with a young upstart offensive guy. I'm not someone who thinks that way. I want the right guy. I do like this. I like to have a guy with expertise and a system on one side of the ball. It certainly works other ways. It has worked with Dan Campbell in Detroit. He doesn't have an expertise on one side of the ball. He's a tight end. He doesn't have a system. It has worked brilliantly in Baltimore with John Harbaugh, who's a special teams coach. And you can go to the college level and talk about Dabo Swinney, and he did a great job, and he was a receivers coach. So it can work any different way. I can find examples of anything. I'm just telling you my preference is a guy that controls one side of the football because that never leaves. It's just hard when you are a head coach that doesn't have a system necessarily, that is constantly having to rehire coordinators and change things. And so to me, that would be a priority. Not something that you have to do, but it would be a priority. And Minter offers that. By all accounts, folks that have worked with him, that have covered him, say he's an incredible communicator. I think that's very, very important. And while I think Dennis Allen's a really bright guy, I think that message may have rung hollow a little bit. Maybe that was because of the results on the field. I'm not really sure. I don't cover the Saints day to day, so I can't be certain. But I just think a guy that is a really effective communicator, and he's shown he can do it with 18, 19, 20-year-old young men. He can do it with professionals. He's gotten the same results. I think this makes a ton of sense. And I think that this is a reality. Well, reality is too strong a word. A probability that the Saints may not get their first choice here because the Saints' job is not as desirable as some of the ones that are likely to come open or that have already come open. Like the Jets are a mess, but that is in New York, and they have a ton of salary cap room and a good defense. The Bears have a ton of salary cap room and a rookie quarterback who's very talented. That job's going to come open. Those situations feel better than a Saints situation with an aging quarterback who's not uber productive and an awful salary cap situation. So the Saints may end up having to hire someone who's a couple of pegs down the list. And that's where you might find someone like Jesse Minter. I think this makes a ton of sense, and I would be very, very much for that hire if the Saints went that direction. Again, Aaron Glenn makes a lot of sense to me, even though he comes from the Peyton Allen tree. I think that going to the same organization and going to the other side and grabbing Ben Johnson would make a ton of sense. Joe Brady's name's been tossed about, and he's obviously got that situation humming with Josh Allen in Buffalo. But I'm a little bit weary of the Joe Burrow, Josh Allen bump that Brady may be getting over his time in the spotlight. But good players are necessary. But I think that Minter is someone that I'm pro. And I think that's something that we're going to be doing over the next month, 2 months. I think 2 months is where we're looking for the Saints to hire a coach, probably late January. And to me, as we start to get names floated, I'll give you a thumbs up, thumbs down. What is that worth? Not the not the YouTube stream that it's on, but that's why we're here. And so if this is a name that the Saints were interested in looking at, I would absolutely be all for Jesse Minter. He's a proven commodity on one side of the ball, and I think could do a great job in New Orleans. If you're looking for Saints coverage, you can always find it on our YouTube channel, Hunt on Saints. That's also available wherever you find podcasts. So if you don't necessarily love firing up YouTube all the time, you'd rather listen to it on one of the apps that you use your podcasts on, Hunt on Saints is right there on your podcast stream. So go ahead and check that out. Subscribe to the channel and like it. We'd appreciate that very, very much. We're going to pause, step aside, and when we come back, my SEC picks against the spread. A lot of games. We got to bounce back. It was a real rough week last week. There's 2 weeks to go. We got to finish above 500. It's got to start this week, plus some more LSU Vanderbilt talk when we come back. Come back after Sports Center. You're listening to a Friday edition of The Hunt Palmer Show presented by Corp.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Audio Video Security Solutions, avssla.com is the website. We don't spend a ton of time out in the backyard in the summer because it's like 104. Maybe if you got the pool, that does help. But fall, winter is a great time to get outside and spend some time in your outdoor setup. If you'd like to have some speakers that provide incredible sound that you can control from the push of a button on your phone with the app, Audio Video Security Solutions can absolutely help you with that. The Palmers spend a lot of time in the backyard because the Myers man just wants to go play baseball. That's all I hear all day, every day. When that doesn't happen, we get a fit. Well, we don't want a fit, so we go play baseball. And I always crank up some music, crank up a podcast as well. And it's because of the folks at Audio Video Security Solutions. Give Mitchell Fisher a call at 225-439-7920. That is his cell phone number. He's happy to hear from you. He'll be your point man to get everything done. And the customer service after the sale is fantastic as well. It's Audio Video Security Solutions. Find them online, avssla.com.